They told you to silence it, to repress it, to fear it, and over time, you did. You learned to carry your sacred fire in shame, to hide its heat beneath layers of guilt, denial, and confusion. But that fire never died. It waited for the moment you'd stop looking outward for power and remember the truth pulsing in your own blood. This isn't about sex as you've been taught to understand it. It's not about indulgence or craving or control. It's about the primal intelligence that gave rise to your body, your thoughts, your dreams. The same energy that spirals galaxies into form also spirals at the base of your spine. It's not a metaphor, it's a system, a frequency, a forgotten science of transformation. Long before the doctrines and dogmas, ancient civilizations understood this. They knew that within the act of union was not sin, but salvation. That within desire was not temptation, but information. Sexual energy wasn't just an impulse, it was initiation. The Egyptians carved it into temple walls. The tantric mystics mapped it through breath and movement. The Gnostics called it the serpent, the fire, the hidden light. They didn't worship sex. They revered the consciousness behind it, the intelligence that, when honored, could lift the soul into memory of its origin. And then, it was buried. Institutions learned that if you control someone's sexuality, you control their life force. If you shame their desire, you separate them from their power. Over centuries, this sacred current was twisted into taboo. What once awakened divinity was reduced to dysfunction. Porn replaced ritual. Secrecy replaced ceremony. The doorway to higher self became a prison of self-loathing. But energy doesn't disappear. It waits, compressed, condensed, until it breaks through a glance that feels like lightning, a touch that feels like truth, a moment that reminds you that you are not just a body, but a field of awareness vibrating with purpose. This is where the remembering begins, not through belief, not through systems, through sensation, through recognizing that what you've been taught to hide is, in fact, what you came here to embody, that your pleasure is a portal, that your arousal is information, that your body is not the obstacle, it's the map. And once you stop running from that truth, everything changes. Your creativity, your intuition, your ability to connect, not just with others, but with existence itself. Because sexual energy isn't an act, it's a language, one you once spoke fluently and are now just beginning to hear again. The question isn't whether it's real. The question is, can you still feel it? They never told you that energy could remember, but it does. Long after the moment has passed, the touch, the look, the breath held between two hearts, the energy remains. It echoes through your nervous system, encoded in electric pulses and soft hormonal signatures. Your body stores what your mind forgets. And within that storage is a doorway most never open, because to open it is to unlearn what you were told about power. You see, sexual energy isn't just a reaction. It's not something that happens to you. It's the intelligence of life seeking expression through you. It's creativity in its most concentrated form, not just to make children, but to make reality. Yes, reality. When this energy is unconscious, it leaks. It spills into addiction, confusion, cycles of seeking without satisfaction. But when it's conscious, when it's remembered, it becomes magnetic. It attracts, it organizes, it aligns. It begins to shape your external world to mirror your internal frequency. This is not mysticism. This is mechanics. Think of it like this. Sexual energy is raw potential, untamed current. What you pair it with, thought, belief, intention, determines what it becomes. This is why ancient practitioners used ritual and breath, not to repress energy, but to refine it, to focus it like a laser instead of scattering it like smoke. The ones who understood this didn't need permission. They didn't ask whether they were worthy. They knew, because when you stand in the presence of your own sacred fire, doubt evaporates. You no longer need to prove. You simply radiate. And that's where the shift begins. When you stop seeing sex as an escape and start seeing it as a technology. When you stop reducing desire to physicality and begin honoring it as divine communication, the soul speaking in the only language that cannot lie, sensation. It's not always comfortable, it's not always gentle, but it is always honest. And in a world drowning in mental noise, honest energy is revolutionary. So why has this been hidden? Why has your deepest intelligence been rebranded as shame? Because a person in touch with their creative energy is a person who can't be sold lack, who can't be manipulated by fear, who doesn't search for approval in systems designed to withhold it. Because a sovereign soul is ungovernable. That's why this remembrance is dangerous, not to you, but to the illusions that feed on your forgetting. You were never meant to be numb. You were meant to burn, not with chaos, but with clarity, not with lust, but with light, not with repression, but with recognition. This is what they hoped you'd never discover, that the spark within your desire is divine. And yet, even now, the resistance arises, not from evil, not from darkness, but from conditioning, a lifetime of spiritual half-truths and cultural distortion. You were taught that to be spiritual, you must transcend the body, that purity lies in denial, that pleasure must be tamed, sterilized, sacrificed. But transcendence is not escape, it is expansion. And there can be no expansion without embodiment. You are not here to leave the body. You are here to bring divinity into it. This is why your sacred energy matters, because it's the bridge, the link between heaven and earth, between thought and form, between intention and manifestation. To suppress it is to break that bridge. To honor it is to become the architect of your own experience. But honoring it does not mean indulgence. It means presence. It means feeling what you feel without shame, holding desire without rushing to discharge it, listening to your body like it's an oracle, because it is. The more you listen, the more it speaks, in pulses, in synchronicities, in sudden insight that doesn't come from thought, but from knowing. And what begins as personal quickly reveals itself to be universal. You start to see how everything, your relationships, your work, your emotions, is shaped by the state of your energy, not just your sexual energy, but how it moves, where it's blocked, and where it flows freely. You notice how people respond to your presence, how some are drawn, others repelled, how clarity sharpens, how intuition deepens. You begin to walk with a sense of wholeness that doesn't need to be explained. You remember not just who you are, but what you are and what you've always carried. And then the question arises, if this has always been within me, what else have I forgotten? That's the doorway. That's where it begins. And the moment you step through, your life becomes something else entirely. Not a repetition, not a chase, but a reclamation, a remembering. And if you're still here, if you're still listening, that means something in you already knows. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell because what's coming next is something your soul's been waiting for. Now ask yourself, what would your life look like if you trusted your own energy more than your beliefs? Most people never ask that question. They live entire lives chasing answers from outside, searching scriptures, systems, and teachers, all while the deepest truth pulses quietly in their pelvis. The truth isn't hidden in words, it's embedded in sensation, in the tingling just beneath the surface of awareness, in the pull you feel when something resonates without needing explanation. And that pull, that sensation, is not random. It's a signal that energy is waking up, that the current is shifting from dormant to dynamic. At first, it feels subtle, like a whisper in the nervous system, a flicker behind the eyes. But the more you allow it, the more it builds. The more you follow it, not with control, but with curiosity, the more it reveals. And what it reveals is this: the body is not just a vessel, it is a temple, a transmitter, a translator of cosmic information into human experience. Every twitch, every ache, every surge and stillness, it all speaks. The sacred energy isn't separate from you. It is you. It's your essence, your origin, your untapped potential, waiting not for belief, but for embodiment. And embodiment doesn't mean performance. It means permission. Permission to feel. Permission to follow the thread of desire without rushing to define it. Permission to honor the longing without judging it as weakness. Permission to allow the energy to move, rise, and reshape you from the inside out. Because the more you trust this intelligence, the more you realize it's been guiding you all along, through what you loved, through what you feared, through what you couldn't explain but couldn't ignore. It's the force that drew you to certain people, the pulse that made you question the ordinary, the ache you felt when you touched something true, and then lost it. That ache isn't pain, it's the tension between who you became and who you were meant to be. And sacred energy bridges that gap, not through thought, not through control, but through surrender. When you stop trying to manage your energy and start meeting it with respect, with reverence, you stop fighting your power. You stop fearing your light, and in that moment, transformation begins. The masks fall, the roles dissolve, and what's left is raw, unfiltered being. Not perfect, not polished, but real. So if your body has been speaking in whispers, this is the moment to listen, because what starts as sensation becomes revelation. And now you're here, not at the end, but at the beginning of something ancient, something that doesn't need new names or complicated systems, something that only needed one thing to return: your willingness to feel. Because that's where it all begins, in the feeling, not in the intellect, not in the belief, but in the raw, sacred sensation of being fully alive, fully here, and fully in relationship with the force that made you. That's the real initiation, not into a cult or a school, but into your own body, your own wisdom, your own forgotten magic. When this energy moves freely, you start to remember that nothing real can be taken from you, and nothing artificial can satisfy you. You become less interested in performance and more interested in presence, less addicted to validation and more anchored in truth. You no longer seek experiences to escape reality, because you become the experience. This is what it means to walk awake, to let the divine intelligence that once made your body also move your choices, your creativity, your voice. To stop dimming your light just to fit into spaces built on shadows, to let your life become the offering. That's the quiet power of sacred energy. It doesn't just awaken you, it rearranges your reality. And the more you honor it, the more it opens doors you didn't know existed. The right people arrive, the right insights land, The right synchronicities unfold, not because you forced them, but because you aligned with the current beneath all things. And now you have a choice. You can go back, pretend you didn't feel what you felt, let this message fade like so many others. Or you can follow the thread, follow it into the breath, into the body, into the places you swore you'd never return to, because that's where your power waits. The energy has always been sacred. You were just never taught to treat it that way. But now you know. And once you know, you can't unknow. So before you go, answer this. What would change in your life if you stopped hiding the most powerful part of you? Your answer might be the beginning of everything. It arrives like a tremor, a shift so subtle it feels like breath, but it rearranges everything. It doesn't ask for your belief, it asks for your honesty. To admit that somewhere deep inside, you've always known there was more. More to your body, more to your pleasure, more to your purpose. This more isn't a fantasy, it's your inheritance. And sacred energy is the vehicle that delivers it, not someday, but now. You see, when you begin to move with your own current, something strange happens. The world begins to respond. Your external life starts to mirror your internal clarity. Relationships shift, patterns unravel. Things that used to feel impossible begin to feel natural. Alignment replaces effort. That's because you're no longer living from fragmentation, but from flow. This is why the ancients guarded this knowledge, not to keep it from you, but to protect its potency. Because misused, sacred energy becomes manipulation, but honored, it becomes medicine for your body, for your mind, for your soul, and for the collective. Because your energy doesn't just affect you, it ripples. It echoes into your lineage, your environment, your creations. When one person awakens to their inner fire, they ignite space for others to do the same. This is why remembering is not selfish. It's sacred responsibility. But that responsibility doesn't look like pressure. It looks like presence. It looks like slowing down enough to feel, to notice, to breathe into the forgotten places and let them speak. It looks like loving your hunger instead of fearing it, holding your intensity instead of silencing it. This is how transformation becomes sustainable, not through force, but through frequency. And the frequency of sacred energy, when allowed, is regenerative. It rebuilds what was broken. It softens what was armored. It reminds you that power isn't about domination, it's about integration. So let the fire rise, let it melt what no longer serves, let it sculpt you into something not new, but remembered. Because who you are becoming is not a stranger, it's who you were before the world told you to forget. And now you're here, not at the end, but at the beginning of something ancient. Something that doesn't need new names or complicated systems. Something that only needed one thing to return, your willingness to feel. Because that's where it all begins, in the feeling, not in the intellect, not in the belief, but in the raw, sacred sensation of being fully alive, fully here, and fully in relationship with the force that made you. That's the real initiation. Not into a cult or a school, but into your own body, your own wisdom, your own forgotten magic. When this energy moves freely, you start to remember that nothing real can be taken from you, and nothing artificial can satisfy you. You become less interested in performance and more interested in presence, less addicted to validation and more anchored in truth. You no longer seek experiences to escape reality because you become the experience. This is what it means to walk awake, to let the divine intelligence that once made your body also move your choices, your creativity, your voice, to stop dimming your light just to fit into spaces built on shadows, to let your life become the offering. That's the quiet power of sacred energy. It doesn't just awaken you, it rearranges your reality. And the more you honor it, the more it opens doors you didn't know existed. The right people arrive, the right insights land, the right synchronicities unfold, not because you forced them, but because you aligned with the current beneath all things. And now you have a choice. You can go back, pretend you didn't feel what you felt, let this message fade like so many others. Or you can follow the thread, follow it into the breath, into the body, into the places you swore you'd never return to, because that's where your power waits. The energy has always been sacred. You were just never taught to treat it that way. But now you know, and once you know, you can't unknow. So before you go, answer this. What would change in your life if you stopped hiding the most powerful part of you? Your answer might be the beginning of everything.